Hello, fictional. Welcome to the Fiction Series X. Today we are gonna see, what if Kiba fall in love with FemIssei? Part 1. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. No thought hi to Issei, bleeding half to death. Why, what did I do to deserve this? The girl was laying on the ground, dead-eyed and bleeding from the hole in her chest. She was stabbed by her friend, Issei and Yuuto. For what reason? Why did she stab her? Was it some cruel joke? And her transformation, what the hell was she? Black feathery wings, a black skimpy outfit. Seriously, what was she? She'll never know at this date. As her vision began to blur, a magic circle appeared and revealed a handsome male figure coming out of it. He had glistening blonde hair, magnificent blue eyes, a small mole under one eye. He looked familiar, very familiar. He knelt over her, scooped her up, and whispered, "It's okay. I'll bring you to her, so she can bring you back to life." It was the last she heard before blacking out. In the Kuo Academy campus, Issei Haidu was laying on the grass, wearing the Kuo Academy girl's uniform, and reading what outsiders see as a textbook when really, it was a disguise for her reading yaoi. She was blushing and looked quite lecherous while reading it and seeing a drawing of the two men having sex. She giggled and nosebleed as she read more and more of what was happening. "So, what do you think of that?" asked her friend, Kiryu, who was sitting next to her and also wearing the uniform. She has been friends with Issei for quite a long time, and the two always act perverted and watch 18+ yaoi together. "It's pretty sexy so far," she answered her. "The guys are so hot." Ika giggled. "Figured you liked it. Not the best yaoi I've read, but still hot anyways." She closed a book, wiped her nose blood, and sat up with her, looking at her. "Say, Ika-chan, why did we enroll here? Wasn't this an all-girls school?" "It was," the perverted friend replied. "But due to the fact that it's co-ed now, there's going to be some boys here just to see the girls. That means we're looking plenty for some great manhoods and abs." She lecherously smiled as well as Issei. "Right. That means we'll get hot boyfriends very soon," she said a little too happily while posing a bit too confidently. Ika giggled mischievously, however, making her friend confused and turning to her. "What, Ika-chan? I'll keep my hope with that goal." However, she pushed up her glasses, a white glare forming on the lens. "I'll still be helping you with your goal of being with Kiba Yuuto-kun." Issei's face became red. Yuuto Kiba was the school's pretty boy, unsurprisingly popular among the girls of Kuo Academy. His charm and good looks never failed to swoon the ladies, Issei and even Ika, at times. All of the girls had a crush on Kiba and wished to date him. However, Issei's crush on him was bigger than theirs. She wanted to be with him, but she found that to be an impossibility since she couldn't keep herself collected when she's around him. Her dream was that one day, just one day, she'll have a hot boyfriend. If she can't get a hot boyfriend, then she'll get a reverse harem. Only if that was possible as well. "Hey Ika-chan," she exclaimed. I don't need your help on that." She scoffed. "You're a terrible liar, Issei-chan. Without my help, you wouldn't have the guts to even speak one word to Kiba-kun." She pouted at her friend. "Well, you don't need to give me any more lewd advice on how to make him date me." "What? It might help you actually get him." She shook her head. "No, it won't. Besides, I don't have a body of a supermodel, so they're not going to work anyway." Ika frowned at her. "He might not be into those supermodel types, so showing a bit of your skinship might actually help you." Issei has always gotten lewd advice from Ika on how to court Kiba, such as showing her skinship by wearing her uniform in a sexy way, flirting with him obnoxiously, or even trying to make out with him, all of which were bad and she would never do to get his love. "He might, Ika-chan," she said, pouting at her and blushing. She only giggled. Mischievous Ika-chan, she thought, annoyed. She may be her friend, but there are times when she wonders why she was her friend besides reading, watching yaoi, and being a perv to men. Suddenly, the two perverted girls then heard screaming, causing them to look at the direction it came from. Two men, one with a shaved head and the other with glasses, were running away from the girls of the kendo club with their kendos out. "We were just stumbled across that hole," the shaved-haired male shouted from the top of his lungs. "Yeah. It's just stumbling," added the guy with the glasses. Ika and Issei laughed at the situation. "Liars," shouted Ika teasingly. "You two know you peeked on purpose." "Shut up, bitch," both of them shouted back angrily at her. "Knowing you two, it's true," added Issei. "The female perverted duo are right," shouted Murayama. "We always see you two peeking at us," shouted Caddis. "You two aren't helping at all." The two perverts continued to run away from the girls and to their doom of being cornered by them. "Ah, typical Mitsuda and Motohama," the perverted girl with the glasses said. "Peeking on girls as usual." The brown-haired girl sighed. "Yeah, when will they ever stop?" Mitsuda and Motohama were two of the most perverted guys in Kuo Academy, getting the name the perverted duo. They always peek at girls when they were changing every day. Hell, they even peeked at Issei and Yuuto changing once. However, they did not like them because not only were they not hot, but they were perverted, thus school-wide, they were known as the female perverted duo. At times, they tend to peek at guys changing and caught Mitsuda and Motohama changing once. But then they wish they've never seen them half-naked, thus a rivalry between them formed. They both then heard some girls squealing. Both female perverts turned to see Kiba Yuuto himself walking with a trio of girls behind him. Issei blushed at the sight of him, her eyes sparkling. "Kiba-kun," called out a girl. He stopped and looked at them with his charming face. "Are you doing anything today? Can you please come to sing karaoke with us, Kiba-kun?" asked another girl. "Oh, I'm sorry, but I have club activities to do," the pretty boy replied to them. The girls looked sad and groaned. "Ooh, that's too bad," the third girl stated. He smiled at them reassuringly. "Thanks for inviting me though. I really am sorry." He waved goodbye to them as he left, leaving them blushing and love struck over him. Issei pouted, feeling jealous that unlike her when she's around Kiba, they actually talk to him with single sentences. But she still loved the sight of him. Yuuto chuckled when she was looking like that. "There he is, Issei," she said to her. "Go talk to him before he leaves." She looked at her as if she were crazy. What?" she exclaimed before her friend grabbed her hand, pulled her up, and shoved her towards his direction. "Go talk to him," she shouted to her. The brown-haired female then bumped into his shoulder, causing him to stop and look at her. She stood there, frozen, her face burning red and her heart beating faster. "Yuuto-chan?" he asked. This wasn't the first time I could push Issei into Kiba's way so she could talk to him. In fact, it's happened so many times that he learned her name, but calls her Yuuto-chan. Hi, Kiba-kun," she stuttered, putting on an awkward smile and putting the textbook 18+ yaoi manga behind her back. "How are you today?" He smiled at her, making her blush even more. "I'm doing well. How about you?" Oh, just fine." She began to sway the book yaoi manga behind her a little in nervousness. He gave her a puzzled look just from the face she was making. "Yuuto-chan, are you alright?" She stopped smiling and automatically replied, what yeah. "I am." She suddenly felt the yaoi manga slip from the inside of the textbook, making her feel stiff and look back to see the manga tumble down the slope. She looked frightened, yelling, "Wait. That's my yaoi." However, as she began to run to get it, she slipped and fell down the slope as well. "Yuuto-chan," shouted the pretty boy as he ran, grabbed the yaoi manga, and ran to Issei, who was on the ground face first. She got up and turned to see him with the manga, looking aghast to see him with that. However, he smiled at her once again and handed it to her. "Here's your manga, Yuuto-chan," he said. Blushing hardly once again, she grabbed it from him and bowed to him. "Thank you, Kiba-kun," she replied. "You're welcome. Anyway, I need to go to my club. I'll see you later." "Right. Bye." She waved goodbye at him, making him wave back at her. He still kept that puzzled look on his face until he chuckled and began to walk away. He had always found her weird, but not in a bad way. She was always like that to him, but in the end, she makes him smile. He was curious to why she acts like that around him though, and why she was reading yaoi anyway. However, there was one thing that bothered him ever since he first met her. Her aura. For a human, she lets off a very strange aura. At first, he thought that might be ridiculous, but the more she stumbled upon him, the more solid her aura is. In fact, when he arrives in his club, he'll tell his president about it. Back to Issei, she sat back next to Yuuto and sighed in relief. "At least he didn't question why I had a yaoi manga on me," she muttered before looking embarrassed. Still, I tripped in front of him. Her friend patted her shoulder and smiled at her. "At least you finally talked to him for more than 30 seconds. Way to go." She cheered. She smiled. She was right. Before her manga slipped, she was going to end their conversation there. She usually does that because of her nervousness whenever she's near him. She couldn't help it though. Kiba was way too handsome. In the old schoolhouse of Kuo Academy, 2 beautiful women were in there. Ria's Gremory, the woman with long crimson hair, and Akeno Himejima, the woman with the raven-colored hair. Ria's was taking a shower after a talk with Akeno, while Akeno just sat on one of the couches in the room patiently. As the red-haired beauty came out of the shower soaking wet with a towel on, Kiba entered into the room and greeted, "Good afternoon, President, Akeno-san." Both of them smiled at him. "Hi, Yuuto-kun," Akeno greeted back. "Hi, Yuuto," Ria's greeted back. "You're earlier than usual." He nodded. "Yes, but I need to talk to you two about something." Both looked concerned. Ria's had another towel in her hand and began drying her hair with it. "What is it?" she asked. "Is it any trouble?" "I think it's something we should look into," he replied in a serious voice. "Have you two heard of Issei-chan?" "Issei?" questioned Akeno before nodding. "I do." She's in class 2B and is notorious for being the most perverted girl in school alongside of another girl named Kiryu, if I can recall correctly. I've heard of her as well, Riaz added. I've only heard what you know about her, Akeno. She sounds like no other girl I've known before. Kiba's sweat dropped and nodded. Though he did like her, that didn't mean that he wasn't aware of the reputation she had. She then looked at him. What about her, Yuuto? His face turned serious as he replied, I've been noticing that she gives off a strange aura. Now Riaz looked even more concerned. A strange aura. Can you explain that, Yuuto? She removed the towel from her head and held it on her arm. He nodded once again. Once she first bumped into me, I thought it might be ridiculous that she had a strong aura coming off of her. But the more we're acquainted, the more stronger it is. His eyes narrowed as he finished, it feels as though she has a sacred gear inside of her. A human with a sacred gear. Yes, President. But it feels more stronger than any kind of sacred gear. Stronger? Are you suggesting that Issei is carrying a dangerous sacred gear? It's possible. Akeno put a finger on her chin and stated, then that would mean she could be a target for some enemies. Taking Kiba's news seriously, Riaz nodded and said, Akeno is right. We'll look into her. Thank you for informing us about this, Yuuto. He bowed down to her and replied, it's no problem, President. He hoped they will look into her soon. Since she was a human, she could be in severe danger, especially with the fallen angels. Later in the evening, Issei leaned on the rail of a bridge above a street. She sighed and said to herself, I can't believe my high school life. Will I have to waste my time in the academy if I can't even get a hot date? She then buried her face into her arms. Can some guy at least give me a chance? Kiba-kun, at the most. You're single too? Asked an unfamiliar girl's voice. The brown-haired girl looked up to see a girl with long black hair, magenta eyes, and a different school uniform. She was confused. She's never seen that uniform before, nonetheless the girl. I know how you feel, no man wanting to date you. It makes me feel heartbroken, honestly. What is she talking about? Issei thought in disbelief as she looked at the girl head to toe. I mean, her body, don't you have an Hergless figure? She asked her. I thought men always liked girls with those bodies. The girl nervously chuckled and replied, I do, but she then looked sad, looking away from the female pervert. There's another girl in my school with a better Hergless shape than me, and every guy in school wants to date her except for me. I'm practically invisible to them. Issei's eyes widened in shock. That can happen. She thought. She then frowned and stopped leaning on the rail. Sorry about that. She looked at her and shook her head. It's alright. Besides, I'm glad that there's another single girl with the same thoughts as me. She began to smile, making her smile back. Same here. I wish I had an Hergless body shape like yours, though. All the handsome guys would be flocking me. The mysterious girl giggled. I do wish that I had a better body than the girl in my school. Say, is your name Issei, by any chance? The female pervert was back to confused. How did she know her name? Yes, she replied. Ah. I was wondering. I have a cousin going to Kuo Academy that talked about once. You look like how he described you. Oh. But she looked away once again, looking embarrassed. I know that we just met and we talked a little, but she then looked up at her and asked, can we hang out as friends on Sunday? Issei shot back from the sudden offer. Wait, what? She exclaimed. You're a lonely single girl like me, right? She nodded. Yeah. We can at least hang out and have fun and talk about boys, but we can still have fun and not talk about boys, if that bothers you since you're single and I'm single, and she trailed off and sighed. Sorry for rambling, but she paused, looking sad and lonely. I don't have friends, you see. And since you're like me, I want to be your friend. But if you don't, that's fine. Issei continued frowning at her. She felt more terrible for her. She knew how that felt too. There was Aika, but she was just a casual friend. They never really hung out as actual friends except on occasion. Maybe she'll give this girl a shot. They might actually grow a strong friendship someday. Smiling at her, she nodded and replied, sure. I'm free on Sunday. The girl gasped and looked up at her in surprise. Really? She smiled at her. Yeah. I don't mind being your friend. She smiled back and replied happily, that's great, Issei-chan. I'll see you later then. Wait. She called out to her as she turned away, making her turn back to her. She couldn't believe she didn't ask this, so she will. What's our name? Oh. I'm sorry. It's Yuma. Amano Yuma, she answered. She nodded and waved at her. Thanks. I'll see you then, Yuma-chan. She waved back at her and said, bye, Issei-chan. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you. She then left the bridge. Issei closed her eyes and smiled, giggling. So do I. Awesome. I got a friend other than Aika. She said happily to herself as she began to leave the bridge as well. Thank God. I hope we'll be the bestest of friends, more than Aika, since she's always giving me lewd advice every day. However, as she left, a little girl with short white hair in the Kuo Academy uniform, Kaneko, saw the perverted girl leave. She was licking a light blue popsicle. "I see," Ria said in the clubroom, crossing her legs playing chess. "As expected," Yuuto's news, Kaneko said. "Was right after all, correct? I knew I made the right choice to have you watch her, Kaneko." The white-haired loli nodded. "So she is in danger?" Kiba asked Kaneko. "There's no doubt. I definitely sensed the aura you talked about and that other girl's aura. Haidu Issei is in trouble." The Kendo turned to the president and asked her, "What should we do now, president?" As she picked up a piece and smiled, she answered, "I'll make some preliminary preparations." However, in the end she paused to put the piece on the chessboard. "It's all up to her." The pretty boy bit his lip. He began to worry more about her. How much trouble could she handle? On Sunday morning, her alarm clock showed a red-haired Sundir Bashaunan telling her, "Wake up. Wake up." He then started to blush and pout. If you don't wake up, I might kiss you, idiot." "Wake up. Wake." Issei hit the snooze button on it. She looked up at it with a smile on her face. She couldn't wait for the day ahead of her, the first day of hanging out with her new best friend, Yuma. What could go wrong? After school, Aika saw the two girls talking to each other happily. She wondered who the other girl was. When they approached her, they stopped and looked at her. Issei smiled and said, "Oh right. Aika-chan, this is my new friend, Amano Yuma-chan." She then looked at Yuma. "Yuma-chan, this is my friend, Kiryu Aika-chan." She bowed to her and greeted, "Nice to meet you, Kiryu-chan." The girl with the braided hair, however, greeted her with a monotone hi. She then looked at her brown-haired friend in disbelief. "You don't like me anymore, Issei?" The brown-haired female sweat dropped. "It's not like that, Aika-chan," she replied. "This girl was lonely, so I became her friend." She still looked disbelieved and pouted at her. "Oh really? I do hope we get along in the future, Kiryu-chan," the dark-haired female stated. "Anyways, we need to go. I'll see you tomorrow, Aika-chan." The two girls then left, Aika still looking disbelieved and a bit jealous that she has a friend whose body can make them popular with the guys. Speaking of guys, the two new friends suddenly saw Mitsuda and Motohoma in front of them, with their jaws dropped to the ground at the sight of Yuma. What?" They both shouted. "Why?" Issei sweat dropped once again, thinking, not these two. Yuma looked a little nervous. Issei-chan, do you know them?" she asked. "Yeah, Mitsuda and Motohoma," she answered. "The perverted duo, as I told you." She began to sweat drop too. Oh. Who is she, Issei?" Both asked in unison, still shocked at the sight of her. Her name is Amano Yuma-chan," she answered to them. "She's my new friend." Then, in a flash, both were on their knees and begging. "Please let us date her," begged Mitsuda as he stood in front of Yuma. "I'll date her since I'm athletic." Motohoma shoved him away and cried, "No way in hell, you bastard. I'll date her since I have a brain." "No," Issei replied in an annoyed tone, both of them freezing in their spots, imaginarily pale. "I won't let either of you date her." Yuma nervously giggled. "Yeah, not to be rude or anything, but you two are just not my type," she added, making imaginary souls leave the two male perverts. However, both got over their reaction, Motohoma saying, "Fine. We'll just have to ship you two." Both the girls' eyes widened. "Eh?" exclaimed Issei. Mitsuda began to blush, smile, and nosebleed, saying, "That's a great idea. They're both hot together." Both sweat dropped once again as the perverted duo started talking about Issei x Yuma erotica. It wasn't long until Issei said, "Let's just go, Yuma-chan." Yeah, the two girls then left the two in peace. Later, Issei was waiting for her new friend on a curb. She wore a plain pink shirt, a pair of jeans, and white shoes. She looked up at the clock. "Yuma-chan is a bit late today," she muttered to herself. "I wonder why." "Please check us out, ma'am," said a high-pitched woman's voice as an arm handed her a slip, in which she grabs. Confused, she looked at the woman that handed it to her, whose hairstyle was wacky, as well as her Halloween bat dress. She smiled and giggled at her as left without saying another word. I didn't mean to take one," she said. Curious, she looked at it. It was a brown slip with a magical-looking circle in the front. She read, "We grant your wishes." She put it in the pocket of her jeans. "Sounds like a scam to me." "Issei-chan," shouted Yuma. Issei looked and saw her in a short black dress with a light lavender jacket on top and matching heels. She was carrying a pink purse. Compared to the attire Issei was wearing, her outfit seemed more formal, which made the female pervert feel bad for dressing so casually. "Hey, Yuma-chan," she greeted back. She stopped in front of her. "I'm so sorry. Did I make you wait?" She didn't really want to break her feelings by telling her the truth, so she lied, "Nope. I just got here a couple of minutes ago." She put on a smile. Yuma sighed in relief. "Oh, that's good." And thus began their day as friends. The two friends began to walk around the town. Yuuma pointed at a shop and suggested the two should go there, and so they did. They both tried on matching outfits like BFF shirts, single and proud shirts, pretty dresses, action heroine costumes, and more. After trying out so many outfits, both purchased cute bracelets, violet for Yuuma and red for Issei, to symbolize their friendship. Both smiled at each other. Both then went to an ice cream parlor. Both ordered super deluxe ice cream sundaes. As they ate their sundaes, both began to talk about boys. "I'm wondering, what kind of boys are you into, Issei-chan?" Yuuma asked her. "Oh, I'm into the hot and handsome types," she answered. "What about you, Yuuma-chan?" Her eyes sparkled and she smiled. "I'm into the hot and handsome types too." Another question, what would you expect from a boyfriend? She looked at her with a slightly confused look. Huh? You know, what would you want your boyfriend to be like? She went into thought for a minute before answering, other than being hot, handsome, and flirty, he has to be nice. Not only to me, but to everyone else. He also needs to be a gentleman or at least have some manners. I don't really like to date pigs. He has to care a lot about me and protect me whenever I'm in trouble. She looked at Yuuma, who looked at her with a surprised look. She smiled nervously and asked, "Sorry, did I say something weird?" The dark-haired female shook her head, however, and answered, "No, not at all. I wasn't expecting you to expect that from a boyfriend. That's awesome, actually." Issei chuckled, feeling relieved, and replied, "Thanks." That was what she wanted a boyfriend to be like, besides flirty. She hoped to have one of those basic requirements, she hoped. Now what do you expect from a boyfriend? Oh. She blushed and looked away, grinning a little and playing with her sundae with her spoon a little. Well. Later in the evening, the two girls walked in the park, laughing with each other. "I had a lot of fun today," Yuuma said. "So did I, Yuuma-chan." Issei replied with a smile. Unlike doing things related to her and Aika's perversion whenever they hung out, she and Yuuma actually hung out as two normal girls. It was a nice feeling of change for her. "I especially love these cute bracelets." She held her wrist up to show off her red bracelet. "It's a nice way to symbolize our friendship." The dark-haired girl giggled and held up her purple bracelet as well. "I'm glad. I know it's a cliché idea, but it's still a good idea anyway." Both of them giggled. "I haven't really felt this happy in a long time," she thought. "It's nice hanging out with Yuuma-chan. She's sweet." However, Yuuma ran to a fountain, stopped in front of it, then turned to her friend and said, "Hey, Issei-chan. Do you mind doing me a favor to cherish this first day as best friends?" She walked toward her as she spoke her sentence. Issei wondered what she had in mind, so she answered, "Sure. What is it?" The dark-haired girl bowed to her, closing her eyes. However, she grinned a little grimly and opened her eyes, which were cold as ice. She demanded in a lower voice, "Die, please." As she straightened up, Issei felt stiff. Did she just tell her to die? "I'm sorry, what?" she asked her. "Can you repeat that? I don't believe I heard your eye." She then walked to her ear and whispered, "Die, please." Now she felt her skin crawling. She really did say it, but why? Yuuma backed away and giggled evilly as her clothes shredded and she began to transform. Issei gasped and fell on her butt. "Whoa, what? Why is she stripping?" she thought. "Wait a second, are those wings?" She saw the wings she let out, all black and feathery like a fallen angel before finishing her transformation, wearing a skimpy black outfit. The sky also changed to purple. What the hell's going on? Why is she dressed like this? Although it was short-lived, it was nice playing BFFs with you, Yuuma said, now in a lower voice. She held her wrist up, showing off her purple bracelet. "I'll keep this gift you wasted your money on and take good care of it." So she paused as she let her hand out and formed a light lance. She then grabbed it with both hands and pointed it at her. Her immediate reaction was to run away, so she tried to crawl away from her fast. "Wait, Yuuma-chan," she exclaimed before Yuuma interrupted her. "Die now," she said as she shoved the light spear through her chest. She felt immense pain course through her entire body. As it disappeared, much of her blood violently gushed out, leaving her speechless. The winged woman sat on the fountain and explained, "So sorry, but your existence threatens us. We had to take the initiative and go in for the kill. You can blame God for planting a sacred gear inside of your body." "Sacred what?" the brown-haired girl thought as she coughed out blood and fell on her back. Yuuma spread out her wings and said happily, "Thank you for the sweet memories." She then flew away, the sky returning back to normal. Issei's eyes lost the life they had in them as they dully looked up at the sky. Her body continued losing blood. "No," she thought in despair. "Am I going to die in this park because of whatever the hell happened?" She could only shiver a little as a breeze flew by. Why, what did I do to deserve this, she began to wonder. Why was she stabbed? Was it because of a cruel joke Yuuma was planning? What the hell was Yuuma anyway? Those black feathery wings, that skimpy black outfit, what was she? A stripper with wings. She'll never know at this state. As she coughed out more blood, she didn't move. She tried to, but she couldn't. Damn it, I'm going to die here, I'm going to die a single virgin girl, what a terrible fate I'm facing, why? Can't I just be with Kiba-kun before you kill me, Yuma-chan? She began to think about the pretty boy. His smile, his voice, his good looks, everything about him. Kiba-kun is so handsome and hot. I wanted to ask him out, but I'm too scared to do so. Now it's too late. Part of the magic circle from the slip she had began to glow. What am I thinking? I'm going to die, she continued thinking. I can't move my body at all. Why? Why did that bizarre thing happen to me? Why did Yuma-chan look like that? Why do I have to die, exactly? Another part of the magic circle also glowed. No boyfriend, no dates, no first kiss. God, what a failed life I had. I want to be reborn just to have a hot boyfriend, specifically Kiba Yuuto-kun. She imagined Kiba looking seductive. Kiba-kun, only him. If I wanted to die anyway, please let me die in his arms on his wonderful chest. She imagined him then running his finger down his well-developed chest. The entire magic circle of the slip glowed red completely and slipped out of the pocket of her jeans. It then turned into a life-sized magic circle, a male figure appearing out of it. He turned to her. He had glistening blonde hair, magnificent blue eyes, a small mole under one eye, though her vision was blurring, he looked very familiar. "Hi Do-chan, you called me?" he asked in a familiar-sounding voice. She could have sworn he was familiar, but her brain began to fail as death was nearing her. Who is this handsome man? She thought. I think I know him. He knelt over her. I knew you would end up like this. But it's okay. He began to scoop her up, his wings suddenly let out. Unlike Yuma's, they were like bat wings. He gave her a warming smile and whispered, I'll bring you to her, to Lady Ria's grimoire, so she can bring you back to life. Those were the last words she heard before completely blacking out, losing all of her consciousness. The next morning, Issei's alarm clock was beeping and showed a Yandir Shouda with an eye patch, a crazy look, and a working chainsaw. Wake up or you'll be killed, my love, he teased seductively. Wake up if you don't want to be killed, my beautiful. Wake. Issei hit the snooze button again. Her hair was messy and out of its ponytail, and she was wearing plain white pajamas. She looked up at the alarm clock with weary eyes. I just had the most weirdest dream, she mumbled as she sat up from her bed and yawned. However, she then realized what she said. Dream? It felt very real to her, so she was unsure. In school and dressed in the girl's uniform, Issei walked in the hallways with Aika. She asked her, you're sure you don't remember Yuma-chan? For the last time, yes, she replied in a slightly annoyed tone before pushing up her glasses. Besides, you wouldn't make any more friends since you have me. She frowned. That couldn't be true. She could have sworn everything from yesterday was real weird as it was. She then saw the perverted duo hanging out on the staircase, making her stop as well as Aika, who was confused to why she did that. Perhaps they knew. Hey. She shouted to them, catching their attention and making them look at her annoyingly. What now? Asked Mitsuda. Are you going to throw more insults at us? Added Motohama. No, I wanted to know if you two remember Yuma-chan, she replied. Aika face-palmed and sighed. Issei-chan, she muttered. Boo. Both male perverts questioned with confused looks. She frowned once again. My new friend. The girl you two shipped me with. They looked even more confused. New friend? Mitsuda questioned. Shipped? Asked Motohama, pushing his glasses up to give them a white glare. We only ship you with Kiryu and that's all. While Issei just sweat dropped, Aiko also pushed her glasses up to give them a white glare as well and chuckled mischievously. If that's the case, we'll ship you two together. You two are quite cute together for unattractive men, anyway. The two of them froze, everyone imagining the two male perverts in a yaoi style, having handsome faces and yaoi hands, almost kissing each other. However, both gagged and retorted, that's disgusting. So is you two shipping me and Issei-chan together. While they were arguing, Issei didn't let go that everything that has happened yesterday. Deciding to show proof, she yelled to them, Yuma-chan is real. I can prove it. The three stopped arguing and looked at her with puzzled and concerned looks. Issei, Aika said before the brown-haired girl took her phone out and turned it on. Here, I can show you guys her, she interrupted before seeing that her phone number and email address were gone. She gasped, her eyes widening. What? She scrolled through everything, but there was nothing. Her phone number and email address are gone, she muttered to herself. Her friend sighed as she patted her shoulder. Let it go, Issei. She's not real and you know it. Issei didn't want to though. Everything that happened before felt real to her, so it has to be real. Yuma's existence, her weird transformation, a handsome guy with bat wings saving her, as bizarre as it all sounded, all of it felt very real, so she wasn't letting it go. Mitsuda looked up and put on a love-struck face. Ria-senpai. He exclaimed. Motohama looked up as well. Wait, really? He asked as he put on a love-struck face as well. Both the female perverts looked confused before they saw Riaz go down the stairs, the perverted duo admiring her presence. As she reached to the floor Issei and Aika were on, she walked past them. But before she did, she looked at Issei and grinned, her crimson hair flowing as she went. The brown-eyed girl looked confused and saw her walk away. Why did she smile at me? She thought. Riaz Gremory, Aika stated, pushing her glasses up. One of the two beautiful ladies of Kuo Academy and a foreigner, since rumor has it that she and her family moved from Europe. She was the most respected with the girls and since she was one of the two beautiful ladies, she was also a flirt among the men. Issei did respect her as she's both smart and beautiful. Yet she was jealous of her beauty and her hergless body shape. If only she had those herself. Ah, she's so beautiful. Mitsuda stated, love struck. Yeah, she brings a breath of fresh air, which is amazing. Added Motohama. Meh, Aika said, shrugging. However, she knew her friend was jealous of her. As the perverted duo continued their conversation, she turned to her and said, anyway, come by my place to watch Galaxy Warriors Hirashi and Junji with me to ease yourself up after that Yuma nonsense. She immediately looked at her and pouted at her, replying, hey. I was just. What? You don't like me as a friend anymore, Issei-chan? Issei shook her head. Despite Aika being, well, Aika, she is still her friend and that won't ever change. No, but. She wrapped her arm around her shoulder and grinned. It's the uncensored OVA. Don't you want to see it? She then looked away from her friend, talking about how great it was and why she should watch it. Issei did listen to her and she thought the OVA might be pretty hot. However, she stopped listening when she saw Kiba walk by her with 3 girls accompanying him. She blushed and gasped at the sight of him. But then as he did, his eyes looked at her brown ones and winked at her. She blushed even more and her eyes sparkled as he looked away from her and walked off. She looked at him walking away, feeling envious of the girls around him. Though she felt charmed that she's seen that. Why did Kiba-kun wink at me? She thought before getting some deja vu. First, Riaz, the school idol, grinned at her and now Kiba, her biggest crush, winked at her. Something's going on today, but what was it? I want to know. After school in Aika's home, the sci-fi yaoi anime she was talking about was playing the opening. Aika's glasses had a white glare on them as she watched the uncensored opening. Issei, however, was looking down at the floor, deep into though. You know, the producer admitted online that more oral sex will happen here, the perverted girl with the glasses stated before grinning in a lecherous way. I hope it's Junji-kun that gives Hirashi-kun head. She then blushed and giggled. As Issei actually liked oral sex between men, she was still deep in thought about her situation. Something's really going on, she thought. I mean, is it even possible that a few days worth of memories can all be fake? The opening had stopped and showed 2 bishounins in a futuristic bedroom, talking all lovey-dovey like. Ooh. It's coming, Aika joked. Get it? The brown-haired girl actually ignored her and continued thinking, if that's the case, what about my real memories? I can't seem to remember them. Her perverted friend, concerned of why her friend hasn't talked, turned to her and asked, hey, are you alright, Issei-chan? She then snapped out of her thinking and looked at her. Huh? Don't you want to see some hot Haranji oral sex? Oh. Yeah. Who doesn't? She giggled nervously and rubbed the back of her neck. Maybe I should stop thinking about that. After all, her perverted face came on. I want to see what I could only read in Haranji fanfictions. She suddenly saw Aika close the blinds, making the room dark at least, to Aika. There, now it's dark so we can have a more intense experience. She said as she giggled once again and sat next to her. However, to Issei it wasn't dark. Her eyes widened as her sight consisted of the television being too bright and everything else red and dark red. From the sounds of it, the 2 bishounins were making out and it sounded like something she wanted to see, but couldn't. Why? Are the lights on? She asked. Her friend replied in a puzzled voice. No. She looked at Aika, who was all shades of red. That's not it. She thought in panic. I can't sense light, but I can see it now. Just thinking about it made her mind hurt, so she got off of the bed they were sitting on, picked up her school bag, and said to Aika, sorry I need to go, Aika-chan. I'll see you tomorrow at school. She then left before she could say anything. As she completely left the house, the perverted girl with glasses frowned and said to herself, maybe she's sick. She placed her fingers on her chin. That would explain why she thinks this Yuma-chan exists. Issei had left Aika's home and began to walk home. It was evening and it was supposed to be dark. However, it's as if she had night vision, as she could clearly see where she was going. I can see better at night than in day now, she thought before looking down at her hand and clenching it. And, for some reason, I feel some sort of power flow in my body. Mommy. Please let me buy it. Begged a little girl's voice to her mother far from her. She gasped and looked at the little girl and her mother. I'll leave you here if you keep whining. The mother replied in an annoyed tone. No, Mommy. How the hell can I hear that from far away? She thought in shock. She had no idea what was going with her anymore and she felt scared about that, so she began to run home. What the hell happened to me? My body's acting way too strange. She then ran into the park and stopped where she saw a fountain, the same fountain Yuuma was in front of. This park, she muttered to herself as she remembered Yuuma in her normal form. Right here, she looked down at where she's standing. Is where she killed me and that guy appeared. She sighed and clenched her fists, closing her eyes and looking frustrated. Damn it, that day. Was it all just a dream? I mean, I'm glad I'm not dead, but I wish I could know the guy that tried to save me. She then suddenly remembered what he said. I'll bring you to her, to Lady Ria's Gremory, so she can bring you back to life. Ria's Gremory? She rubbed her temples. The school's idol and one of the flirts among the guys bringing me back to life. How is that possible? She then remembered his bat wings and his face, shocking her completely. Kiba-kun with bat wings. She shook her head and placed her hands on her temples. That had to be a dream. It had to be. Kiba-kun having bat wings is impossible. She was happy that Kiba was trying to save her, but she still couldn't believe her memory. How was that even possible? Her thoughts were interrupted by a strange noise, making her tense up and look around. What was that? She asked herself. She looked up to see that the sky turned purple, making her confused, before she looked behind her to see a mysterious male figure in a trench coat walking to her. Her pupils shrunk in horror. How unfortunate, he said in a low voice. It must be my lucky day to see someone of your kind here out of all places. Who is that? She was thinking in horror. What's going on? He then gave her a menacing glare, causing her to step back and accidentally jump a few feet away from him. She was shocked that she did that. What? I only meant to step back a little. She thought out loud. The man crossed his arms and asked, running away, are you? I have no idea what's going on. She yelled at him before she began to run away from him. Seriously, what the hell is happening here? She suddenly saw black feathers fall in front of her, surprising her. Black feathers? Just like Yuuma-chan. She looked up but didn't see her ex-best friend. The man chased her above the sky with black feathery wings just like Yuuma's. He then landed in front of her, causing her to stop and stumble backwards into the ground. She looked at him, terrified of what he might do to her. This is why low-level creatures like you are so troublesome, he stated to her. Please tell me I'm having a nightmare right now. She thought. Please. I cannot sense the presence of a master or mate, nor do you try to escape or expand a magic circle. This means that you must be a stray. Stray? Issei then saw him extend an arm out and form a light spear in his hand, making her stand in and run away from it, getting bad memories of Yuuma just by looking at it. Then I must kill you. If this was a dream, I'd imagine a guy 1000x hotter than him. She thought before the fallen angel man threw the spear and impaled her, causing her to cough out blood. She stopped and sunk to her knees, her hands on the ground. She trembled as immense pain coursed through her entire body. It hurt, she muttered in pain as more blood dripped from her body and the spear. Just like with Yuuma-chan, as she tried to grab it, the light burned her hand, causing her to scream in agony. Foolish girl, the man said as he walked towards her. Light is a deadly poison to your species. Trying to touch it will give you more pain. What? Since when did light hurt humans like this? It was unbelievable to her, despite her not knowing the truth. I thought that might finish you off, but you're quite resilient for a girl like you and your species. The light spear then disappeared, giving Issei even more pain, and reappeared in his hand. Don't you worry. I'll put you to rest soon. She turned to him with widened and scared eyes, her vision getting blurry. Damn it, it's hopeless. She thought in terror. Please somebody, as he was going to throw the spear at her once more, she shouted, help. Suddenly, someone came out of a red magic circle with a sword and knocked the light spear away, shocking him. Who was that? He asked. Both had saw a blonde-haired guy with a unique-looking sword out. He then turned around, revealing himself to be Kiba-kun. The female pervert questioned as she felt like she was going to faint. Don't hurt Haidu-chan anymore, he said with a serious face. You came to save me. She then fell on the ground, unconscious due to the pain in her body. The man turned to him, formed a light spear, and asked, who the hell are you? Don't try to hurt my servant, said Ria's voice as she also appeared from the magic circle and crossed her arms, looking at him angrily. Or my new one. Angry at her, the man threw the light spear at her, but yet another girl, a little girl with white hair, appeared and kicked it away. She stood next to the crimson-haired woman. He caught the light spear and charged at them with it. Damn you. He shouted before a ray of lightning blew him back. A Keno appeared and giggled, electricity sparking from her hand. Kiba began to walk to them and stand next to Ria's as well as a Keno. The man looked up at the red-haired beauty and said, red hair now I see. You're from the Gremory family, I take it. Ria smiled at him. Yes, my name is Ria's Gremory. How do you fare, dear fallen angel? She asked. The man scoffed and brushed the dust out of his trench coat. He then grabbed his hat and put it on. Wow. Who knew that this is the jurisdiction of the heiress apparent of the Gremory family? He looked at an unconscious Issei and asked, is she really of your household? She placed her hands on her hips. Yes, I will show no mercy to you if you hurt her more. Then I apologize for today, but he glared daggers at her. I suggest you don't let your little servant run free. Someone like me will hunt her down and kill her during her walk. Riaz closed her eyes. Thank you for the advice, sir. And now let me do the same. Do this once again and I won't let you off scot-free. She opened her eyes, which were staring daggers at him as well. The fallen angel grinned. Same to you, heiress of the Gremory family. He then flew up and disappeared into a circle in the sky, continuing, my name is Danasik. I hope we can never see each other ever again. His voice disappeared as well as the purple sky, revealing the night sky and black feathers floating around. Everyone approached her body, Kiba looking bad to see her like this. We're too late to save her, he stated. It's not your fault, Yuuto, Riaz said to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. I was careless to think that she wouldn't encounter a fallen angel. She'll die at this rate, the little white-haired girl stated. But I won't let her die. Riaz then her hand from his shoulder and crouched down to her, smiling. After all, she is my. The next morning in Issei's room, Issei's alarm beeped and had a handsome adult butler say, Mistress, please wake up. Mistress Issei's hand hit the snooze button once again. She looked up at it and groaned. I feel so tired, she mumbled. I had another weird dream again. She then began to sit up. Why am I having a weird dream? After suddenly, she felt cold and naked. She looked down and she saw that she was naked, head to toe. She gasped. What the why am I naked? She sighed. Things just get weirder. She then looked around for her underwear, which were on the floor as well as her clothes. There they are. She then got off of her bed and started putting them on. Why was I naked in the first? Suddenly, as she was looking for her school uniform, she spotted another set of clothes in the ground, female clothes. She gasped at the sight of them as she grabbed her own uniform. What? She shouted in shock. Why were there female clothes on the floor of her bedroom, exactly? The long lump under the blanket that Issei hadn't noticed was moving, freaking her out even more. The lump then sat up and the blanket dropped to reveal a very naked Riaz Gremory, stretching her arms and yawning, her large breasts all out in the open. Without having a second thought about it, the female pervert shouted very loud, Ria-senpai, why are you naked in my bed? She stopped stretching and looked at her with a smile. Good morning, she greeted as if this was a normal situation. Issei blushed in embarrassment and covered her underwear with her uniform. Many thoughts ran through her head, especially ones that think they might have had lesbian sex, even though she wasn't a lesbian at all. Please tell me I'm just having a weird dream, she muttered to herself. However, Riaz heard it, put her knee up to her face, put her hands on it, and answered, everything you've gone through was all real. What? She asked her, very confused and shocked at what was going on. My name is Riaz Gremory, the crimson-haired woman introduced herself. I'm a devil. Issei's eyes widened when she heard devil. A devil? She questioned. She thought the devils don't exist. And I'm your master. Master? The female pervert thought, puzzled. It's nice to meet you, hi to Issei-chan. She giggled and closed her eyes in a friendly way. Issei was very confused about the situation. A devil? Her master? Everything was all real. She couldn't believe it. At the same time, the devil part actually made sense to her. There was Kiba's bat wings, the changes in her body, magic circles. As much as she hated to say it, maybe Riaz is right. But why was she her master, and most importantly, why was she and her naked on her bed? The female pervert suddenly heard footsteps coming up the stairs, her mother's voice shouting, Issei. What's going on? You'll be late for school. She felt her skin crawl. If her mother sees this, she's going to get too many bad ideas. No, no, no. Not mom. She thought in panic before yelling, I'm getting up, mom. I'll be right down there. She thought of changing into her uniform and getting out there, but changing in front of another girl. She might have done so before in her gym classes, but she'll always feel uncomfortable, no matter what. But in a situation like this, there was no other choice, so she began to change into her school uniform. What's with all the shouting? Her mother yelled back. It's nothing. You don't have to come up, you know. I promise I'll be down there. As she finished putting on her top, she then proceeded to put on her skirt. You have to get up now, Issei. As she heard her footsteps come closer to the door, she finished putting on her skirt and ran to the bed to grab the blanket to cover Riaz, but the door opened. Mrs. Haidu saw Issei holding the blanket while Riaz just sat there, all naked. She looked at her with a smile and greeted, good morning, ma'am. Issei's mother, shocked about what she was seeing, replied in a voice matching her expression, good morning, please get ready soon. She then quickly slammed the door and ran downstairs, yelling, dear. Honey. What's the matter? Mr. Haidu said in a concerned voice. Did see Issei watch two men doing that again? Issei grunted and fell face first on the bed. No, a foreign woman. Wait, woman, she was with a woman. The foreign woman, all naked. Naked, were they? It's all international. International. How am I going to explain this to them now, she thought, frustrated. She then looked up at Rias, who was still smiling. But really, why is Ria-senpai in my bed in the first place? I wish we didn't have Yuri-like sex, but I don't remember that, so that's good. You've got an energetic family, she suddenly said to the female pervert, breaking her train of thoughts. Issei sighed and looked away from her. Can you at least get dressed? I'm into men and I don't like seeing naked women. She nodded and stood up. If it makes you uncomfortable, I will, she replied as she walked towards her pile and clothes and started getting dressed. The brown-haired female turned her back to her, not wanting to see her get dressed. By the way, is your stomach alright? The female pervert looked confused. Stomach? She asked. Where you were stabbed. Stabbed, she then suddenly remembered being impaled by Danasiuk's light spear, making her lose a lot of blood. She gasped. So that was real? Yes. When the red-haired female finished putting on her underwear, she then proceeded to put on her school uniform. For a girl like you have an unexpectedly sturdy body. A fatal wound like yours healed overnight, after all. Healed? I shared some of my demonic powers with your weakened body. Why was I naked then? I had to share my demonic powers with your body by hugging you naked. Issei's body tensed up. Hug me naked. No worries, we didn't have sex. I'm aware of what you're into, Haidu Issei of the female perverted duo. It's men. She was relieved that they didn't have sex, but then her body tensed up more when she said that. That was true, but how did she know? You know I'm a pervert. Not just a pervert, the most perverted girl in school. She giggled. She sighed and pouted. Great, she thought. She then decided to ask, Ria-senpai. Yes. She replied. You're actually a devil. Yes, I am. I am also your master. Does that make me her servant? She thought. It was pretty creepy to her, thinking about it. Rias was now fully dressed. Alright, you can turn back now. Issei turned to her to see her fully clothed, much to her relief. Rias gave her a warm smile and said, now, let's get downstairs and talk to your parents about, well, you know. Right, her mother caught Rias naked, so she and her father have the wrong ideas about her now. But how was Rias, the girl her mother saw naked, going to explain to them about what happened? How was Issei herself going to explain this to her parents? She guessed she had to find out. However, she wished a hot guy like Kiba was hugging her naked in bed instead of Rias. In the morning, Issei and Rias both walked together to school. This sparked some confusion and shock from other students. The guys were confused that someone like Issei was walking with someone like Rias and not Aika, while the girls were shocked about seeing them walking together, making them jealous. Issei looked annoyed at everyone's reactions. It's no surprise that a notorious pervert like me walking with someone as popular as Rias Gremory-senpai would have some controversy, she thought. As the two girls arrived in the school, the crimson-haired beauty said to the female pervert, I'll send an errand boy to pick you up later. Issei looked a little puzzled at her. Errand boy? She questioned. See you after school. She then left, leaving the female pervert even more puzzled. Wait. Ria-senpai. She called out. Issei-chan, Aika said behind her, making her tense up and look at her. Hey Aika-chan. She exclaimed. The other female pervert pouted at her. You've walked with Ria-senpai to school? She asked. Oh yeah. Aika narrowed her eyes at her and pushed her glasses up, giving them a white glare. What did you do yesterday, after you left me and some hot harangi oral sex? She sounded very demanding. Issei sighed. She can't tell her the truth, but what is she going to lie to her about? While Issei tried to lie to her friend about what happened to her yesterday, Rias had walked up the stairs to go to her classroom. However, she heard, so she's the one. She stopped and saw a girl around her age with short black hair, magenta eyes and glasses, wearing the same uniform as her and leaning against a pillar. She smiled at her, knowing her, while she smiled back. Good day, Rias. Good day, Sona, the red-haired female greeted back as she walked towards her and looked downstairs to see Issei and Aika arguing with each other. Sona also looked down at them. It's unlike you to just impulsively bring someone into your household, she stated. Oh, so it's unlikely of me? She giggled and leaned on the railing, keeping her smile as she looked at her. Well, I think I got myself a silly little sister. She giggled. She wondered what it would be like to have a notorious female pervert like Issei into her household. She hoped she didn't regret it. After all, Kiba insisted her. I see, Sona replied. Later, school ended and Issei sat at her desk, waiting for the errand boy Rias told her about. She said that she'll send a guy to get me, but no one arrived yet, she muttered under her breath. She then grinned in a lecherous way and whispered to herself, I hope this guy is hot. Maybe. She then had a couple of flashbacks when Kiba carrying her when she was dying and letting out his bat wings and when he knocked that light spear away from her yesterday. Kiba-kun. Suddenly, all the girls in the room squealed, breaking her train of thought and looked to see that, conveniently, Kiba entered the classroom and greeted the girls with, "Hello. Kiba-kun." One girl shouted. Issei then joined the squealing squad, looking love-struck at the sight of him. Kiba-kun. She thought before snapping out of her fangirl trance. She felt as if maybe he's just greeting the girls. I heard he always does that in random classrooms. She had little hope that he would be the errand boy. As the pretty boy was surrounded, he said, "Excuse me, ladies." "Oh, we will." Murayama replied, looking love-struck. "It's a humble place, but make yourself at home, Kiba-kun." Caddis added. The girls all parted to let him through. He then walked towards Issei's desk, the female pervert's face turning red. "Good afternoon, Haidu-chan," he greeted her. "Wait. Is he really talking to me?" She thought before saying, "Good morning to you too, Kiba-kun. I mean good afternoon." He chuckled at her silliness. "I came here on behalf of Ria's Gremory-senpai," he stated. Her eyes widened. Then you're the errand boy." She was internally smiling and doing cartwheels. Her thought came true. Kiba was the errand boy and she loved it. "If you would follow me." She instantly stood up and said, "Oh of course. Thank you, Kiba-kun." She then bowed to him. Kiba sweat dropped and chuckled again. "You don't need to thank me, Haidu-chan." Aika, who was going to go to Issei before Kiba arrived, grinned and snickered. "My only straight ship is beginning to sail," she whispered to herself. The rest of the girls, especially Murayama and Caddis, looked aghast at the sight. "Kiba-kun's telling one of the most perverted girls in this school to follow him somewhere," cried Murayama. "Be careful, Kiba-kun," Caddis added. "She's very dangerous." Issei grabbed her bag, stood up, and sighed in annoyance while hearing the girls ramble. "Of course the other girls won't like it when I'm following Kiba-kun," she muttered to herself before putting on a lecherous face. "But I feel so blessed to follow a hot guy like Kiba-kun." She then looked at Aika, who gave her a thumbs up. She smiled at her and left the classroom with Kiba. It was evening and the two arrived in the old schoolhouse. The female pervert looked around. The old schoolhouse. She thought curiously. "Wait a minute, does that mean I'm going to the occult research club?" She had heard about the club. Ria's was the president and it had Kuo Academy's most attractive females. She'd easily be the odd one out since no guys in school consider her attractive. She sighed. However, she looked up at Kiba's face and grinned in a love-struck way at him. "I hope I can be part of the club so I can be with the most attractive boy in the academy," she thought happily. Even if she'd be the odd one out, she'd be very lucky if she can be in the same club as Kiba. They both then arrived in the room where the club was at, being lit by some candles. It was an old-fashioned looking room with a desk, a coffee table, 2 couches, and a shower. One little girl with short white hair was sitting on one of the couches, eating a piece of meat on a stick. She actually looked familiar to the female pervert. A week ago, she saw her and many other girls chase down the perverted duo, probably because of peeping. Still. Who's she? She thought out loud. "She's Taoju Kaneko-san," Kiba answered, startling her and making her realize she asked that out loud. "She's a first-year student here." Hearing her name, the little girl looked at the two. The pretty boy said to her, "This is Haidu Issei-chan." She nodded at her. Nice to meet you," she greeted Kaneko. The little girl then went back to eating. "I remember those idiots mentioning that they completely adore girls like Kaneko-chan," she thought. "Glad I like Shouta's more than Lawless, though I will admit that she's cute." She then heard water sprinkle from the shower in the room, so she looked at that with a puzzled look. "There's really a shower in here?" she asked. "Yes," the blonde-haired male said. Why, she thought, still puzzled as to why there's a shower in a clubroom. "President, I have brought your clothes," said Akeno's voice. "Thank you, Akeno," Ria's voice replied behind the curtains as she shut off the shower. "So that's where Ria-senpai is," the brown-haired girl muttered to herself. Ara, Akeno said, catching her attention. She saw the raven-haired beauty near the shower. She already gave Ria's her clothes, so she approached Issei, giggling. "You're the new club member, right?" She then bowed to her. "I'm Himejima Akeno, the club's vice president. I'm very pleased to make your acquaintance." She then straightened up and giggled. "My name's Haidu Issei," the female pervert greeted, bowing back to her. "Nice to meet you too." She straightened up. She recognized the raven-haired woman. Akeno Himejima was one of the school idols and one of the female school flirts too. Along with Ria's, Issei envied her busty body, wishing she had one. "Thank you for waiting," Ria said as she stepped out of the shower, fully dressed and drying her hair with a towel. "Sorry, I did spend the night at your place, so I had to." It's fine," Issei replied. The crimson-haired beauty then stopped drying her hair and smiled at everybody. "It looks like everyone is here." Rias was leaning against a desk while Issei sat next to Kaneko in one of the couches, Kiba and Akeno sitting together on the other one. "We all welcome you to the Occult Research Club," the red-haired woman stated. "However, the Occult Research Club is nothing but a mere facade, a hobby." Issei looked at her with a puzzled look. "What do you mean?" she asked. "I'll be frank with you. We're all devils here." Issei tensed up. Everyone? She knew Rias and Kiba, definitely Kiba, were, but Akeno? Kaneko? She would have never guessed. That was really frank, Ria-senpai. "The black-winged man you saw yesterday was a fallen angel." The brown-haired girl gasped. Rias explained, they were once angels serving God, but have been cast down to the underworld due to their wicked nature. They try to manipulate humans and destroy us devils. Since primeval times, there's been a constant struggle for dominance in the underworld, or as humans call it, hell. There's also normal angels, coming here on God's orders to hunt us devils down. In other words, we're facing a three-way standoff. The female pervert didn't know what to say about that. Although she wasn't completely dumb, she wasn't really that smart to begin with. "This is kinda getting complicated for me," she stated. Ria sighed and said, "Amano Yuma." Issei gasped and tensed up once again, knowing that name gave her bad memories. "I'm sure you remember her. You two hung out with each other all day." Flashbacks of that day came to her. Her and Yuma dressing up, eating and talking at the ice cream parlor, them wearing the friendship bracelets. How did she know? "I don't know where you heard that name," she said to her, clenching her fists. "But don't treat it like some occult phenomenon. Honestly, that name makes me feel unpleasant now." She let out a deep breath. "But what about her?" The crimson-haired female then took out a picture and threw it on the table. Issei's eyes widened when she saw that the picture had her and Yuma in it, friendly chatting with each other after school. She was speechless. "She was there, no doubt about it," Ria stated. "If she was real, then," the brown-haired female thought, aghast. "How did you get this?" she asked her. "This girl? No, fallen angel. It's the same faction that assaulted you last night." But Aika-chan didn't remember her, and neither did the perverted duo. And her phone number and email address. She used her powers. Issei stopped her sentence and listened to her. "Just like when I used mine on your parents." That made her come to realization. That's right, she thought as she remembered back when Rias met her parents. All of them were sitting at the dining table, Rias sitting next to Issei, while the Haidu parents were across from them. "You're an upperclassman friend of hers?" asked Mrs. Haidu. "I heard you were naked in her room," Mr. Haidu added. "Is it anything intimate?" "Oh, nothing intimate, sir, madam," Rias replied. "That's just how kids hang out with each other nowadays." A red wave traveled across her body as she gave her parents an innocent smile. Issei gave her a shocked and puzzled look. What kind of excuse?" she said before her mother cut her off. "Oh really?" Not believing her hearing, the female pervert saw her parents looking hypnotized in a way. "I see. Alright then." Issei's jaw dropped. "What? They actually believe that?" she thought, not seeing Ria's blue eyes glow red. "Now I know why," the brown-haired female thought. "Once that fallen angel completed her mission, she erased the memories and records of it from you and the people that were around you," Ria stated. "Mission? Killing you?" Issei tensed up. "She came to check whether or not you have a certain dangerous object in your body. She killed you once, that was confirmed, impaled by a light spear, to be precise." She remembered Yuma saying, "You can blame God for planting a sacred gear inside your body." "Sacred gear," she muttered to herself. "What is that?" "An unusual power residing in certain humans," Akeno answered. "It said the greatest people in history possess them. Sometimes they have power great enough to threaten both devils and fallen angels," the crimson-haired beauty added. "Issei, raise your left hand." She did so, wondering what Rias was going to make her do. She sat on the desk and said, "Now, close your eyes and imagine the strongest being that comes to mind." "The strongest being?" she questioned. "Alright." She then closed her eyes and muttered to herself, "Focus, focus." She, however, opened one eye to see Kiba watching her, making her blush. "Kiba-kun," she thought, love struck. "Issei, please focus," Ria said. "Yes, ma'am," she replied as she stopped looking at Kiba and closed her eyes again. Focus, focus. However, she opened one of her eyes a little to see Kiba's handsome face again, making her blush again. Focus, but she couldn't do that. Kiba was watching her and she was too distracted by his attractive face. She then sighed and stopped trying, closing one of her eyes. "I can't do it." Ria smiled at her reassuringly and got down from the desk. "It's alright, Issei. We'll take it slow," she replied. "I can't really focus because Kiba-kun's looking at me with his handsome face," she thought, smiling love struck a little. She looked at the crimson-haired woman and said, "Maybe it's a mistake. It's a fact that the fallen angels fear it and had you killed because of it," she stated. The female pervert looked puzzled. "But if that's a fact, then why am I still alive?" Rias then got out a slip with a magic circle on it and answered, because of this. Issei gasped a little. She recognized the flyer. That's. You summoned Yuuto through this flyer moments before you died. He then brought you to me. So, it was really him, she thought, blushing. Without a second thought, she turned to him and bowed to him, saying, thank you, Kiba-kun. He was startled a little by her just doing that, but smiled at her and replied, you're welcome, Haidu-chan. The red-haired beauty did giggle a little, but got her attention by saying, Issei. The female pervert then turned to her. Since he brought you to me, you've been reborn into the household of Rias Gremory, the daughter of Duke Gremory, an upper-class devil. She then let out her bat wings, startling Issei. As my servant devil, that is. That's why she said that she's my master, the brown-haired female thought. Everyone stood up and faced her. That's true, we're all the same, Akeno stated as she let her wings out before Kaneko and Kiba did. She was utterly shocked before her wings got out. She looked back and saw that like theirs, their bat wings. So welcome, Issei, Ria said to her. So no one here is human. Not even me. Devils form contracts with humans and receiving compensation for doing things for them to collect power, the red-haired woman continued. Nowadays, no one manually draws magic circles to summon us, so we hand circles to potential contractors. She nodded, understanding it a little. I see, she replied. Later, a large pack of flyers were on the table, and Issei began putting them into her bag. We usually send familiars to do it, but as a devil servant, you must learn the basics, Rias told her. Work real hard and you might get a servant yourself someday. Issei gasped and her eyes widened when she heard that. My own servant? She asked. The thought of having a hot servant crossed her mind. Yep, it just depends on the effort you put in. She smiled lecherously and thought, I must work really hard then. She then looked up at her master and asked, if they're my servants, will they obey me? Of course. They and I can do whatever I like to them. Her hands then became grabby. She nodded. They even perverted things. Since they're your servants, why not? Her smile grew to be large and she giggled lecherously, turning away from Rias. This is a dream come true. She thought in glee. I'll put in all the effort if it means having a reverse harem. She looked back at Kiba however, and lost her smile a little. I wish Kiba-kun was in it though. She wondered if servants can be traded. Once she becomes a high-class devil, she might ask Rias for a trade, but who will she have to trade? Geez, that backfired instantly. After the female pervert delivered flyers as requested, she came back into the clubroom and said, I'm done. Rias was out of the shower in a towel, using another one to dry her hair. Good job, Issei, she replied to her. But I have more task for you today. Issei looked concerned, but ready to hear what she had to say. Yuuto received 2 summoning requests, so I'll let you handle one of them. He insists. She blushed as Kiba, who was sitting on one of the couches and bowed down a little to her. Thank you for doing this, Haidu-chan, he said to her. Oh she stuttered before bowing to him as well. I should be the one to say thank you, Kiba-kun. I'll be getting a contract. She was excited to finally get a contract, which will make her progress to her dream of being a harem queen. The blonde-haired male chuckled while Rias just giggled. Kiba thought that her reaction was cute. As Akeno began forming a magic circle, Rias said to the brown-haired female, this is a magic circle that's used for teleportation. Give me your left hand, Issei. Okay, she replied as she opened her palm for the busty woman. Rias then traced a seal on it, the crest staying on her palm and glowing. She gasped a little. This is a carved seal, the crimson-haired female stated. It serves as proof that you belong to the Gremory household. Do as I've told you when you're with a client. She nodded at her master. Yes, ma'am. She replied confidently. Rias smiled. That's the spirit. Now go ahead. Yes, ma'am. Issei repeated as she went onto the circle as the raven-haired beauty got off of it. I'm getting so close to my dream now. She stood confidently on it, glowing red as she was going to jump into the client's house, but it suddenly disappeared, much to her shock and surprise. What? Everyone else who was watching gave her looks of nervousness and second-hand embarrassment, including Kiba and Rias. Looks like you can't jump yet, the red-haired woman stated. What? Issei thought in disbelief. Riding her bike, the female pervert grunted and shouted, what kind of devil rides to their client's home? She was rather pissed off about not teleporting to the client's house immediately through the magic circle. She guessed she had to deal with it. She soon arrived at the client's house. This must be Sami-san's home, she stated as she saw the sign of the house saying the surname. She parked her bike, got off of it, and headed to the door, knocking on it. An older woman possibly in her mid-30s opened it, having blonde wavy hair and green eyes, wearing pajamas that was tied around her curvy body. The brown-haired female smiled at her and greeted, Hi, Junko-san. Go away, she said to her as she closed the door. She shot back, but didn't want to give up. She pounded her fists on the door and yelled, Hey. you're the one who summoned a devil. What kind of devil knocks on doors? Junko asked. Me? Please, just go away. I happened to summon Yuuto-kun. In fact, I always summoned him through Flyer's magic circle. Is this some kind of joke? The female pervert stopped pounding on the door. It's not. I swear. She then sighed. Kiba-kun wanted me to do this. What kind of friend would I be to him if I didn't do this? Junko then opened the door again, looking a little surprised. He did? She asked her. Issei nodded at her. Since I don't have any contracts yet, he wanted me to do this task. How the busty woman looked as if she were thinking about letting the female pervert in. She then looked at her eye to eye and said, alright, you can come in. Just because of Yuuto. The brown-haired girl smiled at her. Thank you, ma'am. She felt pretty lucky since she mentioned Kiba's motive. The woman then led her inside. The teenage girl was sitting across from Junko, sipping the tea she had made for her. So, did Yuuto-kun told you what he usually does with me? The woman asked her. Issei shook her head. She sighed. Well, I usually summon him to consult my stress to him. So, he gives advice to women. The female pervert thought. I guess that makes sense, considering that he's a hot gentleman. But. Issei sighed, knowing that she can't help her at that. Sorry, ma'am, but I'm terrible at giving out advice, she admitted. The busty woman sighed as well. I figured that out. She looked her straight in the eye. Then what can you do, now that you're here? Issei then immediately thought up something from the top of her head. She put the cup of tea down on the table and stood up. Spiral 7 halation. She shouted as she moved her hand in many directions before it pointed to the older woman. Junko only looked puzzled. Issei dropped her hand to her side and looked down in embarrassment. Sorry, I can't do anything cool yet. Why did she think shouting an attack from magical girl Spiral 7 would help her at all? The busty woman began to giggle suddenly, making her look at her with a puzzled look. She was smiling as she giggled. I take it you watched Magical Girl Spiral 7? She asked. Well yeah, she replied. You know it. The woman opened her eyes and looked at her. Of course I do. I've watched it whenever it came on when I was in high school. She then began to sing, fighting evil day and night, her love and justice shining like light, she never runs away from a fight, she is Magical Girl Spiral 7. Surprisingly, Issei still knew the lyrics to the theme of that show, so she sang along, she is a reliable and trustworthy friend. She is always there to defend. She is a lovable heroine to depend. She is Magical Girl Spiral. They both then sang together, Spiral 6, Spiral 5, Spiral 4, Spiral 3, Spiral 2, Spiral 1. With brand new powers all so powerful to make enemies gone, she is Magical Girl Spiral 7. Fighting evil day and night, her love and justice shining like light, with the magical girls helping her fight, she is Magical Girl Spiral 7. She is Magical Girl Spiral 7. She is Magical Spiral 7. She is the Magical Girl Spiral 7. The females laughed with each other. Oh, that brings me back to my high school days. Junko stated. Do you mind listening to me talk about it? Perhaps the female pervert might actually get a contract from this woman. She thought she wouldn't do to her not being able to give good advice to her, but why not listen to her talk about her high school days? Or pretend to listen to her. Either way. Issei, after hearing Junko talk and talk, began riding back to the club. Man, all I did was listen to Junko-san talk about her high school years, and I didn't listen to more than half of what she was saying, she muttered to herself. I didn't even form a contract. Damn it, she hoped to at least remember before leaving far from the home. However, she felt a sudden change in the air. Her surroundings also changed too, changing into a purple color. She stopped her bike, gasping at the strange situation. This feeling just like with Yuma-chan. She stated. Was Yuma coming back for her? Did she know about her being a devil now? How strange, said an unfamiliar voice as footsteps were heard. Terrified, the female pervert looked back to see a male figure approach her. I don't seem to have the wrong person. I, Galanaki, was ordered to erase all traces of you. How utterly strange. The man wore a velvet red long-sleeved shirt that was mostly unzipped, showing his muscular chest, black dress pants, and black dress shoes underneath. He had blue hair with an emo bang covering his left eye, cold yellow eyes, and a short blue goatee beard. Issei has never seen this man before, and while he was hot, he looked very intimidating, so she stepped back from him. Who are you? She exclaimed. Why the hell are you alive? He then let out black feathery wings, making the brown-haired girl's eyes widen. A fallen angel. She killed you, yet you're still alive. He then formed a light spear and threw it at her. She barely dodged it, the palm of her hand opened and revealing the Gremory seal. Galanaki looked surprised. The Gremory household seal. She landed on the ground and sat up to turn to him. Damn it. She shouted. The fallen angel smirked. I see. You're the one Denasiak mistaken for a stray, he said as he formed another light spear in his hand. Who would know that you've joined that household? It's all the more reason why you won't leave here alive." The female pervert gasped as she saw the man about to throw the light spear at her. "This guy's going to kill me," she thought in fright. "Damn it. I don't want to die again. Not after joining the same club as Kiba-kun. Come on, think. What should I do?" She then suddenly remembered what Ria said. Imagine the strongest being that comes to mind. The strongest being when she was little and watched Magical Girl Spiral 7, she remembered Spiral 7 being powerful in her princess form, very powerful. Thinking of that, she raised her left arm up and yelled, "Give me power." Her bat wings were let out and a burst of green energy appeared, pushing a shocked Galanaki back. The green orb appeared at the back of her hand as hard red material covered her hand and half of her arm. The hard red material also created what looks like a bow and an arrow with a dragon's tooth as the broadhead formed as well. She grabbed the bow and arrow and let out a battle cry as she shot the arrow at the fallen angel. It exploded when it got near him, making him scream and tear every inch of his clothes off. Surprised, Issei looked down at the gauntlet, bow, and arrow she acquired. She's never handled a bow and arrow before, yet she shot it so well. "Sacred gear?" exclaimed Galanaki, making the female pervert look up at his well-built muscular body and tried her best not to nosebleed. "I'll notify her first, then kill you after." She then flew away at the blink of an eye. Her surroundings returned to normal. She looked down at her sacred gear again. "Sacred gear," she muttered to herself. "Is this what mine is?" Later in the club room, Riaz answered, "Yes, that is your sacred gear. You can activate and deactivate it at any time." Believing her, the brown-haired girl thought of deactivating it and it disappeared. She gasped in surprise and smiled. "Wow. I thought it would just stay there," she said. "That's amazing, Haidu-chan," Kiba stated to her with a smile. She looked back at him and blushed, feeling charmed and humbled that he said that. "Do you think so?" she asked. "This is giving me quite a headache though," the crimson-haired beauty said, getting everyone's attention. She looked at Issei with a serious face, her hand supporting the side of her head. "The fallen angels now know that you're reborn as a devil." That was right. That Galanaki man was not happy with seeing her and tried to kill her. No doubt he told his comrades about her being alive. Feeling ashamed, Issei looked down with a sad face and played with her fingers a little. "I'm sorry," she apologized. "Your encounter with that fallen angel is just a fluke," Riaz continued. "But understand that you can't take them on alone." She sighed and bowed to her in sincerity. "I understand, President. I'll get going then," she replied as she began to leave the room, feeling a pang of guilt hang on her. She opened the door, stepped outside the room, closed it, and walked to go home. "I think you're being too harsh on her," Akeno said to the crimson-haired woman. "She's still a novice, after all." "I need to be," Riaz replied. "She needs to be more alert." She then put her hand under her chin. "I won't let the fallen angels get their hands on my cute servant." Kiba felt bad for Issei, but in the past, somebody else did treat him that way for a short time to make him more alert. He hoped she would understand. He did agree on one thing though. She was cute. He wasn't going to lie, her looks and her personality, well, excluding her perverseness, was cute. She was a cute girl to him. "Wani-san. Please wake up," said a little shouted boy on Issei's beeping alarm clock in the morning. "It's morning. I'll tickle you to death you if don't wake up." The female devil's hand hit the snooze button. She groaned into her pillow as she looked up at the clock. "I messed up big time last night," she mumbled wearily. Dressed in her uniform and carrying her book bag with both hands, Issei began walking to school. "I bet Ria-senpai's still angry with me," she muttered. Damn it, Kiba might have been a little disappointed in her too, but she hoped that's not the case. Suddenly, a girl screaming and falling down made her stop and look at the situation. The girl was a nun and her suitcase was laid scattered on the ground. She then tried to sit up. "Ooh, why do I need to trip?" her soft voice asked as she turned herself up, sitting on the ground. She looked foreign, having Caucasian skin, long blonde hair, and green eyes, which stared up at Issei. "Who is she?" she thought. "I never seen her before. She needs help though." She then walked towards her and extended a hand to her. "Hey, are you alright?" she asked her. She grabbed her hand and stood up. Thank you," she said to her. However, her coif was blown away from the wind, showing the young nun in all of her cuteness. "I'll admit, she is cute," Issei thought. "If she were a guy though, this might have been love at first sight for me." She broke out of her thoughts and wanted to get the coif from her. "Hold on," she said as she ran and grabbed her coif. "She looks foreign. I wonder if she is." After returning the coif to the nun, she put it on her head and told the female pervert, "Thank you very much." "You're welcome," Issei replied with a friendly smile. Without even wanting to say goodbye, she began to walk away from her and to school until the nun shouted, "Wait." That made the brown-haired devil stop and look back at her. Looking bashful, the nun asked, Can you show me around here? I got lost and need some help." She smiled nervously at her. Issei thought it would be rude to decline that offer since the nun was kind. Why not? She might make a new friend. The two ladies then began walking around since Issei said yes to showing her around town. "So, are you on a trip or something?" she asked the nun. "Oh, no," she answered. "I was appointed to this town's church." "Oh, so you must be a nun. That explains the outfit." The blonde-haired female giggled. "I'm glad I met a nice person like you." She looked up at her with a kind look on her face. It must have been divine guidance. Issei giggled as well. "Well, I mean however," she stopped when she saw a cross on the nun's necklace. Only a sliver of pain ran through her body, making her flinch and the young nun confused. "What's wrong?" she asked her. Trying to shrug it off, Issei replied, "Oh, it's nothing. Must have almost tripped on something." However, she thought, what was that though? Why did she feel a tinge of pain when she saw the cross? Was it because she was a devil? She had to ask Riaz later. However, her thinking stopped as well as her movement when she heard a little boy crying. The nun stopped as well, both seeing him crying over a scraped knee. The nun gasped as she ran to him and knelt to his height. She gave him a warm smile and patted his head. "It's alright, it's only a scrape. You're a little boy, after all." He did calm down after hearing her nice, soft voice. She then hovered her hand over his scrape, green light glowing from her ring, surprising both the boy and Issei. "Whoa," she thought as she saw the boy's wound heal up instantly. His wound did another tinge of pain hit her hand, making her flinch and massage it to get rid of the pain. Again, with that sharp pain. "What is that?" After healing his wound, the young nun smiled at the little boy and said, "See? Your wound is gone. It's all okay now." The boy was thankful of her. She then realized Issei saw the whole thing and nervously smiled at her again. "Sorry, force of habit." She then stuck her tongue out, making Issei giggle a bit. She still had no idea why she had sharp pain strike her twice. Walking some more, the girls were almost at the town's church. Issei looked at Asia's ring. "Does she have some power or something?" she thought. "I must have surprised you there, no?" asked the nun, breaking her train of thought. Issei giggled again. "Yeah. I mean, you've got a pretty cool power there," she answered. The blonde-haired girl looked up at her. "Thanks. It's a wonderful gift granted by God." She looked away from her though and muttered to herself, "Yes, a wonderful gift." Issei heard that, wondering why she said it in a rather solemn tone. However, the young nun looked up and saw the church from afar. She looked happy. "Oh, is that the place?" she asked Issei. Issei looked up at the far church too. "Yeah, it's the only church we have in town," she replied. "Oh, that's great. Thank you very much." Suddenly, looking at the church made the brown-haired girl realize something, chills crawling around her skin. "But I don't see anybody going there." The nun turned to her. "I'd like to return the favor, miss, so will you accompany me there?" she offered. She freaked out a little and answered, "No thank you. I have something else to do." The blonde-haired female looked down and frowned. "Oh, I see." Though she did that, she looked up at her with a kind face. "Well, my name is Asia Argento. Please call me Asia." Issei looked back at her with a friendly look as well. "I'm Haidu Issei, but Issei's my first name, so call me that," she stated. She nodded. "Alright, Issei-san. I'm glad to have met someone as kind as you arriving in Japan." The female pervert smiled at her. "And I'm glad to meet someone as kind as you today." "Thank you. Please promise me you'll visit me in church when you have the time." Issei had trouble with that for a moment. She was a devil and devils are hated by Christians, so wouldn't it be impossible for her to go to church? Still, Asia was a kind girl and she couldn't say no to her, so she replied, "Of course. I promise." "Thank you very much. I'll see you later then." "I hope so, yes. See you later." Both waved goodbye to each other as Issei began to walk to school. She's a really good girl, she thought. I hope we can be good friends. Just thinking that makes her think of Yuma, how she backstabbed Issei and left her for dead. She sighed. She hoped that Asia wasn't the same. Once Issei entered into Kuo's campus, she suddenly heard someone say right next to her, "Good morning, Haidu-chan." She knew that voice instantly, blushing hard and looking to her left to see Kiba right next to her, giving her a friendly and handsome smile. She felt like her brain was melting. "Oh my god. Kiba-kun's walking right next to me and said good morning to me," she thought. "Quick. Say something to him." "Good afternoon, I mean, morning, Kiba-kun." She greeted him awkwardly. "You stupid idiot. How could you goof up a simple greeting like that?" He chuckled at her usual weirdness towards him. He guessed being in the same club as him didn't change that. It was still the weirdness that made him smile in the end, so he didn't mind too much. Why are you walking with me?" she asked him. He broke out of his thoughts and looked at her. "You're part of the club and the peerage, so I'd like to hang out with you and get to know you a little more." Issei's brain now felt like exploding. He wanted to hang out with her and get to know her more. It was practically a dream come true for her. That's great, Kiba-kun. I'd love that. He smiled at her, making her blush grow. Great. Suddenly, some screaming caught both their attentions, Issei's blush disappearing and the both of them looking to see some of the girls, including Murayama and Caddis, looking shocked and jealous at Issei and Kiba walking together. Why it? Shouted one girl. Why is he walking with her? Shouted another. Kiba-kun. It's dangerous to walk with her. Exclaimed Murayama. She's part of the female perverted duo, Kiba-kun. Added Caddis. Run while you still can. Both of them sweat dropped, Kiba putting on a nervous smile. I guess this is going to be a problem, he said. Yeah, the female pervert said. She forgot for a second that every girl in the school wanted to hang out with him. This would be a big problem since she was perverted as hell and every girl wants him, but he wants to hang out and know her. She felt blessed, but they probably will annoy her to no end since she'll be with Kiba more often. After school, Issei and Riaz met on top of the second level of the academy. It was dark and light shone through the colored windows. The red-haired female looked at her sternly with her arms crossed. Never go near the church, she said to her in a serious tone. Those buildings are hostile territory to us devils. She began to walk to the rail. You will incite fights God and us devils by just stepping in there. Plus, you'll never know when those guys will throw light spear at you. Really, the perverted girl asked, feeling a bit scared. Then the chill I got from the church was. The warning signal, Riaz said as she leaned her back against the railing. Your demonic instincts might have detected danger. You're inviting death by staying around someone from the church, especially since some of the church's exorcists wield sacred gear. Issei gasped a little. The power Asia used, did she have a sacred gear? She must have to have that sort of power, Issei. She broke out of her thoughts to look at her master. Yes. She replied. To exorcise a devil means annihilating them completely. You'll turn into nothing. She got off of the railing. You feel nothing, you do nothing, you see nothing. Do you know how that feels? She shook her head. There was the time when she was close to death before Kiba saved her, but she could still see and she could still feel. No, I don't, she answered somberly, looking away from her in shame. Ria sighed. I apologize if I sound upset, Issei, she said, making her look back at her. From now on, please be careful. She then turned her back against Issei and walked away. She didn't hate Issei, nor does she remotely wish to kick her out. She is just a new devil. Still, with lots of things going on, she didn't make her stress ease one bit. I will, Issei replied. She felt terrible, breaking her promise to the nun and making the president more stressed than usual. She was in the clubroom later, laying on the couch and staring at the ceiling. It's like all I accomplished is getting yelled at by president, she muttered to herself. She remembered Asia, smiling and waving goodbye to her. She let out a deep sigh. I'm sorry, Asia, she thought. I can't keep our promise. She heard the club door open, making her suddenly shoot up and look to see that Kiba entered the room. She blushed the instant she saw him. Kiba-kun. She exclaimed without a second thought. The blonde-haired male smiled, waved at her, and greeted, good evening, Haidu-chan. He then sat on a couch across from her. How are you? We are great. She replied, lying to him. She contradicted her reply by deeply sighing. She not only got yelled at by Riaz once again, but she's still acting like a complete idiot when it came to Kiba. Boy, was she having a good day. The blonde-haired guy noticed that gesture, however, dropping his smile. Are you sure? He asked. Great, now he knows, she thought. Oh well. Maybe I should just tell him. She looked away from him, looking somber. She sighed deeply again. It just seems like all I've done for this peerage is getting yelled at by president. I don't feel like I've done anything good for anybody here. I feel like she trailed off, biting her lip. She felt like a failure, but she didn't want to say that in front of him. Kiba looked unhappy to see her like this. He could understand how she was feeling. Still, he held the same thoughts he did when Riaz was getting a little harsh on her. He decided that saying his thoughts would make her understand. Haidu-chan, he said, making her look at him, her blush returning. I know how you feel. It wasn't the president that did it to me though. Issei looked slightly puzzled. Riaz didn't treat him the way she treated her. Then who? It was somebody else, but he also treated me that way as well when I was a new devil, but thanks to that, I was more alert and was ready whenever danger came to me. I hope you understand. Issei sighed once again. He had a point, but still, she failed to get a contract and she didn't feel so confident as a devil. He continued, plus, the president has a lot on her mind right now. Really, she's kind once you get to know her better. She nodded, understanding a little, but kept her somber face, making him feel disheartened. He thought he should cheer her up with something he knows is a fact. He stood up from the couch and sat on the other couch the female pervert was on, her noticing and blushing again. Kiba-kun? She asked. With a warming smile, he placed his hand on her shoulder, making her blush even harder. "The president sees potential in you," he said to her. "That's the reason why you're here, well, that and I insisted." He chuckled. "When I first encountered you, I felt the aura your sacred gear gave off. If I hadn't felt that, you wouldn't be here right now. And it would be a shame, because I like you." He closed his eyes, keeping his smile. She blushed even harder than before. He actually liked her. This was a dream come true. Too bad it wasn't love though still. "Thanks, Kiba-kun," she said to him a bit happily. "But you really think President sees potential in me?" He nodded. "She sees potential in all of us, including me. Besides, I think you'll be a great devil." That statement surprised her. "Really?" "Yeah. I can't wait to hang out with you more, Haidu-chan." This was a better dream come true. She also couldn't wait to hang out with the hottest guy in school and her biggest crush more. "Sorry to interrupt you two," Akeno said as she popped out behind the couch, surprising them both and making them tense in shock. "But the president's been looking out for you, Issei-chan." "Hey Akeno-san?" exclaimed Issei and Kiba. Not even 2 seconds after, Riaz entered into the room through 2 white doors. She was a bit surprised to see the raven-haired woman in the room as well as Kiba. "Akeno? I thought you went back already?" she asked, puzzled. She stood up and faced Riaz with a serious look on her face. "The Archduke sent us a message," she told her. "The Archduke?" The crimson-haired beauty crossed her arms. "What did he say?" "There's a stray demon loose in this town." Riaz, as well as Kiba, instantly looked serious when she said that. Issei, however, looked a bit puzzled. "Stray demon?" she thought. It was night and the entire peerage, including the female pervert, walked towards the place the stray was said to be in. "They used to serve another devil," Kiba explained to her. "Like us?" she asked him. He nodded, continuing, "Sometimes, demon servants betray or even kill their masters, so they can live however they please. That's why we call them stray demons." She nodded, understanding the explanation. "We're heading towards an abandoned home," Riaz announced to everyone. "From what I've been told, a stray demon is there to lure people in to kill and eat them." The perverted girl suddenly got goosebumps. "Wait, eat them?" she exclaimed. "Our mission is to take it down," she continued. Once they arrived at the entrance, Kiba opened it for them, letting them all in. "You will see the utter monstrosity stemming from the abuse of demonic powers and being without a master," he finished as he walked into the building and closed the door. Issei began to feel nervous. She felt as if the stray will look horrifying. "Issei," Riaz said. "Yes, President," she asked. "Are you familiar with chess?" That was a random question to Issei, but she decided to answer it anyway. "The board game, right?" The red-haired woman nodded. She began to explain, "I, the master, am the king." That sounded weird to Issei since there was never a female king, but decided to listen more. "The pieces are the queen, the knights, the rooks, the bishops, and the pawns. Aristocratic devils assign the traits of these pieces to their subordinates." "Traits? We call them evil pieces." Everyone stopped walking to look around, trying to find the stray. Issei was a little puzzled about why devils assign servants like chess pieces. Why would they need to do that though? She thought. "Anyway, examine closely to see how devils fight tonight," Riaz demanded her. The female pervert nodded since she had no clue how to fight, despite blasting off the clothes of that one fallen angel. "Sure," she replied. "She's here," Kaneko stated. Everyone was ready to fight while Issei tensed up a little. "I smell something bad," bellowed a deep, distorted feminine voice. At the same time, "It also smells delicious." "Will it be sweet?" The woman whose voice belonged to appeared on a higher level topless with hair at the bottom half of her body. "Or will it be bitter?" Everyone kept their guard, especially Kiba, who was positioned and ready to draw out his sword. Issei, however, looked weirded out by the woman. She muttered. She didn't look scary, but she looked very weird and whorish. "Stray demon type. Visor," Riaz stated. "These are nefarious beings that ran away from their masters to fulfill their own desires. They deserve more than death for their sins." Riaz positioned herself confidently. "By the name of Duke Gremory, I will kick your ass." She then posed with confidence. The visor scoffed. "Insolent girl," she murmured. "I will cover you in blood as red as your hair." She then grabbed her breasts and played around with them, laughing manically. "A line as witty as expected from a small fry," the king said. Issei's sweat dropped and looked away, feeling both embarrassed and nervous. "Is this how stray demons are?" Issei thought. "She seems to be just a weird whore," she said out loud. Just when she said that, she heard something else, making her look to see that the bottom half of her body was a huge masculine-like torso, had a hairy chest with a jewel in the middle, too large as arm with a hand and painted fingernails on them, and a snake on its back. She gasped, aghast at the horrendous sight of that. "Just as I told you," Kiba said to her with somewhat of a grin. "Strays become ugly in both body and heart. I'll say." Seriously, it was both scary and hideous to look at. She suddenly noticed Visor's nipples are straightening up and had magic circles around them. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What the hell? Are those magic circles? The stray continued to laugh maniacally as she shot beams out of her nipples. Everyone began to scatter to get away from them, Kiba swiftly scooping Issei up princess style and running out of the way at the pace of lightning. They hit the wall, melting it so far that you could see the outside. She looked up at Kiba and blushed, seeing that this looked like a romantic situation. Thank you, Kiba-kun, she stuttered. How could he have saved her that quickly? Kiba smiled at her once again. You're welcome, Haidu-chan, he replied as he got her on her feet. She looked at the wall in shock. She really is a monster. She exclaimed. Which is why you shouldn't let your guard down, Riaz said, who was far from them. She gestured to the blonde-haired guy. Yuuto. He nodded at her as he grabbed the end of his sword and suddenly disappeared. Issei gasped in surprise. What the where did he go? She asked in shock. He just disappeared. The crimson-haired king walked and stopped next to her and answered, he's faster than the eye can see, which is how he saved you from those blasts. So that's why, she thought. Yuuto represents a knight, his trait speed and the sword his strongest weapon. He appeared in front of Visor and at the blink of an eye, slashed both of her arms off. She screamed, the holes the arms were at bleeding instantaneously. Kaneko then stepped in front of her, her fists clenched. Wait. Kaneko-chan. It's too dangerous. The brown-haired girl shouted as Visor transformed her face and the chest, turning into a sharp-toothed sideways mouth. The monster stray yelled as the chest trapped the white-haired loli inside its mouth. Issei gasped, but Riaz kept a grin on her face. Don't worry about her, she said to her, making her look at her with a puzzled face. Though Visor was giggling, the mouth was forced open by the little girl, only her clothes shredded. That shocked the female pervert. Kaneko is a rook. Her traits are simple. She has tremendous strength and defensive ability. An attack like this wouldn't leave a scratch on her. Except her clothes, Issei added internally, sweat dropping. Egan, the white-haired rook said in her usual calm voice before punching most of the Visor's teeth out and escaping her mouth. The Visor screamed and crashed into a pillar. Geez, fighting Kaneko-chan would be the end of me, Issei thought, awed at her strength. The red-haired woman turned to the dark-haired one and said, Akeno. Her eyes closed and her hands holding each other, Akeno walked to a spot where they could summon a magic circle. Yes, President, she replied. Ara, what should I do now? She then giggled. Suddenly, one of Visor's arms began to move and lunged at the red-haired beauty. Issei was the only one to notice, so she made her gauntlet, bow, and arrow appear and pointed the arrow at the hand. President. She shouted at her as she shot the arrow at the hand, the arrowhead piercing its skin before blowing up inside of it. It blew Ria's back, making her land on her butt. However, she looked up at her servant with a look of surprise. Thank you, Issei, she said to her. She nodded. You're welcome, President. She stood up, however, making her stop her sentence. She then looked at Akeno once again. Akeno, would you finish her off? Akeno, who had her back turned the entire time, said, a bad girl who dares to harm the president. She then paused to turn to the hideous stray. Needs to be punished. There was a dark look in her eyes and a sadistic-looking smile on her face as electricity formed and sparked on her hands. She is the queen, Riaz explained. She's the almighty vice commander combining the powers of all the other pieces. As the Visor was twitching, Akeno said to her, Ara, you still have some energy left in you? She then raised her sparking hands up. Then how about this? A thick ray of lightning appeared on her hands. She specializes in demonic powers, Riaz continued as Akeno shocked the monster with a strong lightning. On top of that, she is. Once she stopped shocking Visor, her dark-looking eyes and sadistic smile was still on her as she blushed and said, Ara, you're still so energetic. She then licked her lips. Completely sadistic, Riaz finished. Issei was completely dumbfounded by the way Akeno was now a complete sadist. Let's see how long you can bear it. She shouted at Visor as she began to shock her more, laughing at her pain. She's laughing, the perverted girl thought. Riaz wasn't kidding. She was completely baffled that her personality shifted from nice and playful to dark and sadistic. Akeno, that's enough. You can stop now, the crimson-haired female commanded her. The raven-haired woman did stop but turned to her with an innocent look on her face. Really? Already done? A little disappointing, I should say. She giggled, making Issei feel very unnerved. Riaz then began walking to the Visor, asking, any last words? Hey, kill me, the Visor responded weakly. Is that so? She then grinned as she summoned a magic circle. Checkmate, she said as her powers were unleashed and eliminated the foul stray, her screaming from the top of her lungs as she disappeared into thin air. This left Issei awestruck by how powerful Riaz was. Once the deed was done, the king turned to her servants and stated happily and smiling, we're done here. Let's go back, shall we? Yes, President, replied everybody happily except for Issei, who was still awestruck from what she saw. She had a question though. President? She asked Riaz. Yes. She replied. What piece am I then? What role do I play? You're a pawn, she answered. Wait, a pawn? She began to walk with everyone else to leave. You don't mean. She turned to her with a smile on her face. It means exactly what you think. You're a foot soldier. A foot soldier? She thought in shock, imagining her at a lower rank than everyone else in the peerage, even Kiba. The lowest rank. Why? She could not believe any of this. End of the part 1. So how was this story? I hope you like it. And if you like it, share this story with your friends and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay, it's time for me to go. Bye bye.